The courtroom was thick with attention you could cut with a knife. On one side, my parents, their faces a mixture of greed and entitlement. On the other, me, feeling more alone than ever. Their lawyer, a man with a smug grin, had just finished his opening statement. He painted a picture of two loving parents who had sacrificed everything for their ungrateful daughter, me. And now, they wanted compensation. $10 million, to be exact. $10 million or nothing, my father's voice boomed, echoing slightly in the silent room. He looked at me, not with the warmth of a parent, but with the cold calculation of a business rival. My heart pounded against my ribs. I looked at their lawyer, then at the judge, and finally, my gaze landed on my parents. Their faces were expectant, confident. They believed they had me cornered. After all, they were my parents. The world expects a child to care for their parents, right? But the world didn't know our story. The world didn't see the years of neglect, the emotional manipulation, the constant reminders that I was nothing more than an investment, a lottery ticket they were waiting to cash in. My own lawyer gave me a reassuring nod. We had prepared for this. I took a deep breath, stood up, and faced the judge. The microphone felt cold in my hand. My voice, when it came out, was steady, far steadier than I felt inside. I started by acknowledging them. Your Honor, these are indeed my parents. They gave me life. I paused, letting the words hang in the air. I could see my mother dabbing a tearless eye for effect. My father puffed out his chest. They thought this was the beginning of my surrender. They were wrong. They gave me life, I repeated, and for that, I suppose I should be grateful. But what they are demanding today is not repayment for parental love or sacrifice. It is the final invoice for a childhood transaction. I turned to look directly at them. Their smiles faltered. They claimed they sacrificed everything for me. Let's talk about those sacrifices. I began to detail my childhood, not with anger, but with cold, hard facts. I talked about the birthdays they missed because they were chasing business opportunities. I mentioned the school plays they never attended, the parent-teacher conferences they skipped. I spoke of the nights I spent alone, learning to cook for myself at age 10 because they were out entertaining potential investors for their next failed venture. The sacrifices they made were always for themselves, with the flimsy excuse that it was all for my future. My lawyer then presented the evidence we had gathered. Bank statements showing extravagant spending while my school fees went unpaid. Emails detailing their plans to leverage my future success for their own financial gain. Voicemails where they explicitly discussed how much money they could get from me once I made it. The smug look on their lawyer's face was long gone, replaced by a frantic shuffling of papers. I continued, the $10 million they're demanding. It's a fascinating number. It's the exact amount they believe my company is worth. They see me not as a daughter, but as a corporate entity they created and now want to liquidate. The courtroom was dead silent. The jury was leaning forward, hanging on every word. The judge's expression was unreadable, but his eyes were fixed on me. My father, unable to restrain himself, suddenly shouted, "We gave you everything. We put a roof over your head." I didn't flinch. I turned to him. A roof, yes, but a home. Never a house. Is not a home when the people inside treat you like a stock option. You didn't raise a daughter. You funded a startup. And now you're demanding your payout. I looked back at the judge. Your Honor, my parents are demanding $10 million. They say $10 million or nothing. Their demand is based on the idea that I owe them for my existence and my success. I took another deep breath, preparing for my final statement. The one my lawyer and I had practiced, the one that would define this entire ordeal. My response to their demand is this, I said, my voice ringing with clarity. I agree. A collective gasp went through the courtroom. My parents exchanged a look of triumphant disbelief. Their lawyer looked utterly confused. Even my own lawyer looked at me with a question in his eyes, despite knowing what was coming. I agree, I repeated firmly. They said, $10 million or nothing. So that is what they will receive, nothing. The silence that followed was absolute. It was a heavy, profound quiet that seemed to suck all the air out of the room. My father's jaw dropped. My mother's face went pale. The jury stared wide-eyed. It was as if I had just spoken in a foreign language that everyone instantly understood. The smugness, the entitlement, the greed, it all evaporated from my parents' faces, replaced by pure, unadulterated shock. They built their entire case on a foundation of fictional sacrifice and parental duty, I explained to the court. They gave me a choice, an absurd sum of money or nothing. I have chosen the latter. I will not pay for love that was never given. I will not be extorted by the very people who were supposed to protect me. My success is my own, built not because of them, but in spite of them. Therefore, they will get exactly what they deserve for their years of emotional neglect and financial scheming. Nothing. I placed the microphone back on the stand and sat down. The silence lingered for a moment longer before a low murmur rippled through the gallery. My parents were speechless, their faces a canvas of defeat. Their lawyer just shook his head, looking down at his desk. He knew he had lost. In that moment, by choosing nothing, I had taken back everything. My past, my future, my self-worth. It wasn't about the money, it was about the truth. And the truth had finally set me free. The judge cleared his throat, and as he began to speak, I knew this nightmare was finally over. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever felt like you had to fight for your own worth, remember that you are powerful. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.